From WBBZ-TV Sports, it's time to beat the champ. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Peck and Sue Novoitsky.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Paul Peck, along with Hall of Fame bowler Sue Novoitsky, and welcome to this special edition of Beat the Champ. We have had a lot of fun over the last 5 years, taking this sport to another level, seeing all the outstanding bowlers in Western New York, and seeing the reaction from the bowling community has been great as well.
Absolutely. There's so many great bowlers in this community that don't do this for a living, but still come out here and perform on the weekends as if they do it for a living. And, and as far as the community goes, I get so much input from everyone, and we have seen so many great matches throughout the years that it's fun to actually look back and see a couple of them from time to time.
All right, so here we go. It's the best of Beat the Champ. Match number one is the red-hot Kevin Volker against Carrie Meaden, and we'll talk about Kerri in a moment, but there's plenty to talk about with Kevin. He's won 3 in a row. Swept the week last week to get things started here at the Tonawanda Bowling Center. His first 3 wins here on the show. This is his 4th appearance now on Beat the Champ, and now he's got that record over 500 at 3 wins and 2 losses. And not to keep overstating it, but he's got knowledge of this bowling center that nobody else on this show, maybe other than Mike Zarcone, really has. And having it and using it are 2 different things.
Well, yes, and also having your game develop on this is an also interesting advantage, because although someone like Mike has bowled a lot of games in this place, he's figured it out based on his game, when I think Kevin's game was developed here.
So here's the debut of Carrie Meaden on our show. She becomes the 3rd female to compete on our Beat the Champ show in the last 4 years, joining Julie Selk and Stephanie Tompkins. And like you said, it's always great to have the ladies on here. She did it by straight out qualifying too. Right. She had the 24th score in the top 24 rollout, and then posted that 4th best score in order to make the show.
Right, so that's always nice. And she's a strong bowler. She's out of Lockport, and we'll talk about it. But she's had
slow motion
luck right there.
Yeah, a little slow motion fall of the 6-pin, and it's a double to get things started for Carrie Meaden. Kevin Volker is 33 years old, CPA administrator for FedEx, from right here in Tonawanda, and has been bowling since he's 3-4 years old. 225 cumulative average, and like we said, a lot of that bowling is done right here at the Tonawanda Bowling Center. And a little luck there as well, too. Right back, serious right back at you. Like he had a string attached to the 1 pin and just gave it a yank.
I can tell you, in all my years of bowling, I don't think I've ever seen a lucky shot compensated with another lucky shot. So now to update everybody, because Kevin ended last week's win over Curtis Foss with 6 consecutive strikes. He's up to 8 in a row now. And he may need every one of them.
Or make it 9 in a row.
It's funny how we talked about earlier how 39 was the problem, and then we kind of commented on how sometimes that flip-flops and that lane becomes the easy lane. And with Kevin's ball change, he's actually made 39 look as good as he at 40 it looked earlier because of that ball change.
There's the stats and the vitals on Carrie Meaden. Works in clerical at the Niagara County DSS. Lockport, 29 years old. But that one didn't slide over and grab the 7 pin. There is so much more to Carrie Meaden that we want to tell you a little bit about. Aside from the fact that she's had some incredible achievements. Lockport Female Bowler of the Year 2015-2016, bowled for Lockport High School 2003, 2007, where she helped the team win 3 state titles, then bowled for ECC under the legendary Kerm Helmer, won the individual title 2008, Lockport City Tournament last year. But from the point when she was an outstanding college bowler and on her way to becoming a great bowler, there was a car accident in 2013 that required 2 back surgeries and 1 neck surgery, and really kind of curtailed her bowling game. She's only just getting back into it now, and look at this, here she is on the show.
Absolutely. And just one thing that you can't take away from somebody, and that's their knowledge. And she's a smart bowler. She knows her game. She knows how to adjust. And she's also got a nice, you see her steps are very short. She's got a short stepped 5-step approach, but she's very solid at the line. And that helps a lot to be, you make less bad shots when you're that steady at the line. But she's encountering the curse of lane 39 because she has yet to be on it long enough to realize that lane does hook up earlier. So you see the results of that in the last 2 shots.
Looking to finish off a difficult spare here. Oh, nicely done. Back-to-back spares after a double to open up for Carrie Meaden.
This feels like a good time to take a short break. We'll be right back with more action on Beat the Champ.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
Well, Kevin had to go to a different bowling ball that went longer on lane 39, and Kerri's speed isn't overly fast. So the slower ball speed is going to read the lane even sooner. So Kevin, can just naturally throw it harder, amp it up some, and get it through that spot. Kerri can't get it through that spot without moving her target and everything.
That is 6 in a row for Kevin Voelker and 12 consecutive strikes going back to last week's show. Is there any prize for having a perfect game over two matches
over
like
2
that?
weeks?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe more so in the same week, but over 2 weeks, not so much. But they do call it an Andy Barapapa 300 for whatever the reason when it's broken up into 2 games. So we'll give them that.
A legendary former pro bowling great. There you go. Make it 7 in a row.
That hit into the pocket could have left a weak 10, and that's why he was cheering it on. But he got a kick back there and got it out.
So Kerri has obviously got her work cut out for her. She trails by over 100 pins right now, which not a shocker when the guy you're bowling against is working 7 in a row. But what a great opportunity for us to get a chance to meet Kerri, and for the Western New York bowling community and those folks that watch this show to start to put her name on your list of people to keep an eye on and watch. And nobody knows the female bowling circuit better than you do in this town. And I think you'll tell me Kerri's one you're going to start keeping an eye on.
Well, I've seen her at some tournaments. I see her at our Queens tournament. She is a Lockport bowler, so sometimes we don't run into Lockport bowlers so much. And she hasn't ventured into Buffalo yet, but she probably should. Okay, she made a move on that one. And as she found out, not a big enough move. It requires a bigger move than that.
Didn't it?
Well, it's still bit up early, not as early. So we're talking a few more boards with her feet, and probably more with her eyes too. And she's going to run out of time here because unfortunately Kevin's put up too much of a high score for her to come back from.
Yep. 8th frame, and she'll grab the spare, will Carrie Meaden. And again, to your point, if nothing else, female bowlers out there see Kerri bowling here and realize that you can make this show, you belong on this show, and we want to see more of the great female bowlers in this town on our show.
I'll tell you, when we did that 4th show with Peggy, where Sue Jeziorski won, Julie Selk, and didn't get the kick on that one.
No, boy, that thing spun by the 10 and bumped it, and it wobbled, and it won't go down. So the run of 7 strikes in a row and 13 over 2 matches comes to an end for Kevin Voelker.
But back to the girls. I thought the girls put on a good show. I thought it was just as good as watching the girls bowl out
Absolutely.
on tour. And, I hope to see more of them out there.
You still keep promising me that you're going to get your friend Liz Johnson to come on our show here, and it's one thing for me or you to say it. If Liz says it, that carries a little more weight, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'll check with her what she's doing in August, and maybe I can get her in here for that.
Coming back at some point this summer.
The girls are out on tour now, and they're all over the place.
Well, that's the problem.
And because she does it for a living, when the girls' tour isn't going, she's going to Japan and she's going internationally, you know, to keep going. So her trips to Niagara Falls to see her parents are short. She comes, but we have to hit her at the right time.
Sure, and if it doesn't overlap with one of our tapings, you know, it'll happen. It'll happen at some point. We're looking forward to having a chance to sit and talk with Liz as well, too. Ninth frame for Carrie Meaden, who has put on a nice show here for us. She's bowled 300 games 6 times, has a high 804 series, 218 overall average for Kerri, and we are headed to Lockport for next month's series of shows, so maybe that's the opportunity for the Lockport resident to pop on again.
Absolutely right. And with you saying that, we need to talk about the qualifiers a little bit, because they just started up. Actually, they're starting today, so today's would be over, but tomorrow will be June 30th. There'll be a 12, 2, and 4 squad. It's got a lot of qualifiers. It's actually got a Tuesday qualifier on July 2nd, 6:30 and 8:30. So if your weekends are busy, get out there for that one. And Saturday and Sunday, the 6th and 7th of July, 12, 2, and 4. And the roll-off will be 7 p.m. on Sunday the 7th. So
Alley Brant Lanes in Lockport, which is what we're talking about. One of our favorite stops all year long. Always that good summer stop there for us up in Lockport.
Play some miniature golf.
Yeah, we're gonna do. I think we need to do a little Beat the Champ staff miniature golf.
I think so.
I think that's a must. So we'll be looking forward to see everybody in 2 weeks up at Alley Brant Lanes with a whole new set of bowlers. We'll see which bowler from here in Tonawanda is going to get to make that short trip up there. So it's a 192 on the board for Carrie Meaden. Isn't going to be enough because Kevin Voelker has been red hot, and he stays that way, and he is going to post himself up another one of those hefty scores, and he keeps knocking those pins down and blowing everything away, and boy, what a match. Take away that one bumped 10 pin in the 8th frame, and we might be having a little different conversation right now because it's been strikes across the board for Kevin Voelker.
Well, his shot is held up very well, so it's not out of the realm of possibility at this point. We still may see that 300 game.
And we'll see if Kevin can finish it off with yet another strike here. What an impressive performance. And, you know, you had the feeling that because of his knowledge here, that there was a chance he could go on a nice little run. And this is a run that has taken him 4 in a row. And another strike and a massive score of 279 on the board for Kevin Voelker. 4 in a row. And it sets up a behemoth battle between Kevin and Mike Zarcone. Hold on for that one. It's coming up in a moment. First, we'll talk to Kerri, and we'll get you ready for that one. We are off and rolling at the Tonawanda Bowling Center. More right after this. Well, Carrie Meaden is here with her mom, Kathy. First chance to get on the show. Unfortunately, you ran into a pretty hot bowler, but take me through how important this was as we laid out your story to sort of reach one of those milestones along the road to be on our show here.
I'm stoked to make it. I'm not going to lie. Pretty happy to be back. I went through quite a bit in the last few years, and I'm happy to be here. Have my support system with me.
Yeah, well, how much of a role has Mom Kathy played in pushing you along to get back to this point?
Since day one, other than when Grandpa took me out.
You still mad at him for sneaking her out for that first bowling?
No.
Okay, good call there.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it was here.
It was here, huh?
And she bowled in the kids' leagues here. Started out really at this.
That's amazing. Last thing for you, Kerri, give a little message to all those female bowlers out there who may not want to be a part of the show or haven't tried yet. We want to see more terrific young ladies like yourself on this show.
Don't let the boys intimidate you. Not at all. Girl power. This area has some great female bowlers, and I would love to see them all bowling with me out here.
That's great. Well, hopefully we're going to see you pretty soon. We're back up in Lockport next month. Hopefully we get you again. What a great opportunity for all of us to learn the story and get a chance to meet Carrie Meaden. We've got a great match coming up. The red hot Kevin Volker and Mike Zarcone. Stick around. It's next from the Tonawanda Bowling Center. Well, this should be a good one, if not a great one. The red-hot Kevin Volker, winner of 4 in a row against our most successful beat-the-champ bowler, and that's Mike Zarcone. I don't need to explain to anybody who watches this show why we're excited to always have Mike on and what we might be seeing here. So, not that Kevin hasn't been pushed and tested through the first 4 matches, but he's going to have to rise to the occasion on this one. And here we go. Volker versus Zarcone, and that run of strikes that has just been piling up for Kevin, not able to get the 10 pin down to get it started here.
Still a great shot. I mean, there's always the risk of being, high flush with that ball speed, but still a great shot on a tough lane.
So Kevin will really have to tap into the knowledge that he has here at the Tonawanda Bowling Center and make good shots, because he knows he's going to be tested by one of the all-time greats here in Western New York, and that is Mike Zarcone, making his 35th appearance here on Beat the Champ. That is more than anyone else. His 34 wins, tied with Chuck Jagosinski for number 1 here on Beat the Champ, and I know Mike would love to break that tie.
Oh, wow, there we go.
And that's not quite the way he would have wanted it to start, with a 7-10 split. And thankfully the 7 took a slow fall, and he'll have a chance at the spare here.
There's always something at stake when either of those guys are competing, because that high spot there for the most winners is in both their minds.
So spares to begin with for both guys, Zarcone and Volker. 34 wins and 23 losses here on Beat the Champ. Last time we saw Mike was a couple months ago at Transit Lanes. Did not see him last month at Jamestown, but we usually don't go much more than about a month or so without having Mike on the show anyway.
It's always one or the other, sometimes both, but it's always one or the other.
And got that a little far to the right and leaves the 4 and 7 here.
Well, we saw Curtis using the same approach, being inside and opening the lane up, which changes your angle of entry. I mean, Kevin has still been able to maintain the right to left angle into the pocket. And, it's going to be a challenge for Mike to be opening up the lanes. You saw him almost leave in pocket 7-10 on the right lane, and that's because the ball is just going to be getting used up from, traveling from the left part of the lane to the right part of the lane and back. So far, that approach hasn't been successful. It's been a little bit better to Kerri going the direction that Kevin's going, but we're in a constant evolution on the lanes, constant transition.
Nice, powerful strike over 18 miles an hour down the lane for Kevin Volker. Through the first 4 wins, last week's 3 wins, the win over Carrie Meaden, he's averaging 238, and that includes a 186.
Right. Really, he's been 230 or better other than that one score.
Yep. He had a 279 with 11 strikes and 12 attempts in the last match, after 6 consecutive strikes to end the match before that. And that one won't be a strike, and a little frustration on Kevin's side that he'll leave the 10 pin.
No, another good shot. It's got that ability to amp up that ball speed too, so that helps him.
That was almost 19 miles an hour.
Yeah, that helps him stay in that same area on the lanes. And again, Mike's ball speed is a little bit slower. We're definitely going to see how the difference in the games.
Spare for Kevin Volker in the third. Now we've talked so much about Kevin's knowledge of the center here. He bowls a lot here. Really feels like he knows every pair and every set of lanes at the Tonawanda Bowling Center. I think I may have alluded to before that I thought Mike had a similar level of knowledge, but in reality, Mike doesn't bowl here a lot. He literally lives around the corner from here, but he doesn't really bowl here. But you know what? It doesn't matter with a guy like Mike Zarcone. He's so good that it doesn't matter where he's bowling. He can be bowling out in the park parking lot, and he'll still be one of the best bowlers in town.
Well, I think one of the
Ask him if he's ever bowled in a parking lot.
I don't know. We're thinking about it, trying to do that at the fair, right? Trying
That's
to
right.
get some outdoor bowling. But one of the things that's going to be a bit of an equalizer is the fact that as often as Kevin has bowled here, there's really not much cause for him to have been bowling here after the amount of play that has been on the lanes. I mean, you bowl league here, there's 3 games. You know, even if they're, you know, what's the occasion you're going to be on the same pair for 6 matches? I mean, they're still going to break down to the point where he hasn't seen them before. And
that's a great point. That's a great point. So I'm going to follow up by asking you, what are some of the things that you would be looking for based on that? What should Kevin be looking for now that he's on his 5th match on this pair that hasn't been re-oiled yet?
well,
Wobble, and it won't go down.
to be honest with you, none of us have seen yet him having to make a drastic move. He's been able to stay generally in the same spot for all of these games. So we haven't yet seen how the transition's gonna affect him, because he's been able to keep it with, doesn't want to do that against Mike Zarcone.
That is literally, in 5 matches, the first mistake that Kevin has made.
You're right. This looks like a good time to take a break. We'll be back with more Beat the Champ right after this. Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
So let's talk about what Mike grabbed some headlines, and one of the, he's a past winner of the Obenauer Masters back in 2014, but a couple of weeks ago, runner-up to the great Jack Jurek. What an epic final that was at the Obenauer Masters. Those 2 guys, arguably, and really, if you're arguing with me, you're just wrong. 2 of the best bowlers to ever bowl in Western New York, Mike versus Jack. What a great Obenauer Masters final that was.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, that is one tournament that comes down to your knowledge and your skills. You're not getting away with anything in that tournament. So, I have to think that a lot of the Beat the Champ bowling that Mike has done has actually made him a better bowler. He's bowled more, he's competed more. There's a mentality to competition, as opposed to bowling your league, and that's competitive and whatever. But this one-on-one competition that Mike has had so much of has had to play into his getting to the finals of the Obenauer.
And we talk about
head-to-head is something different.
Right, and we talk about what a grueling test it is, that it's over 5 days, and it's just a lot of bowling and a lot of changes and a lot of different competition and double elimination. So if you lose once, now the pressure's on, and it says an awful lot. And hey, congratulations to our buddy Jack, who became the oldest winner ever of the Obenauer Masters. It was his 3rd Obenauer championship, I believe. Second,
I think 3rd.
Third. So congratulations.
He
to
had
Jack.
a little run there. I mean, going back a ways, he had won back-to-back for sure, at least. So this has to be 3.
Right.
But
so good for Jack. Congratulations. But it says an awful lot about Mike for getting all the way to that final match. And pushing Jack really hard.
I have to add this, and it's been kind of, to me, one of the big changes in bowling as far as being good in your leagues and being a really good bowler in your area to being able to compete on more of a national stage is the difference in the lane conditions, because we really only see house shots, modified house shots, the very best here while we're bowling competitively in our leagues. And people like Jack, who bowl on a national stage, get to see sports shots and tougher lane conditions that they get better on. So it's very hard for a league bowler, even a great one, to compete with someone who sees those shots on a regular basis. So good for Mike that he could be that much of a challenger against someone who really is not only one of the best bowlers to ever throw a bowling ball, but gets to practice and get competition on those tougher shots.
So the strikes have dried up a bit here for Kevin Voelker. Only 1 in this match so far. Meanwhile, Mike is on a triple at 3 in a row right now. Well, actually, correction. That streak ended in the 6th frame, so there's back to striking in the 7th frame. So that's 4 of the last 5 now for Mike. And you know, again, that's the challenge of bowling against a great bowler like Mike Zarcone.
Well, yes, and you know, I think we go back to Kevin hasn't bowled in this house on conditions that have been worn quite as these have been worn, and he's trying to do it with. Whoa, that was a rough shot.
Yeah. Looks like it even left his hand funny and just didn't track.
It never got to its break point.
Yep. So it'll leave a 3-6 spare pickup here for Mike Zarcone in the 8th frame.
Even though it's choppable, this should be pretty routine for Mike the way he throws it. Kevin is trying to stay in the same spot by switching bowling balls, and that's been successful so far. But there's going to be a point where that part on the lane becomes unplayable. And, you know, we might be getting to that point right now.
Yeah, well, we're getting to that point now in the 8th frame with Kevin down by over 50 pins that he needs to make his move now. Nice smooth stroke, and the results will show it. Trying for a 5th consecutive win. We've never had a win streak here at Tonawanda longer than 4 in a row, which is kind of interesting. And we've had a lot of winning streaks on this show. Some have been at one center, some have overlapped in others, but for whatever reason, this place has never been able to churn out a long winning streak.
Big shot here.
Missed the target. Never broke towards the pocket.
Wow.
And that leaves a rather challenging 4 pins.
Lane 39 rearing its ugly head because his best ball reaction was with that pearlized ball that he had switched away from. Now we're seeing the difference in the lanes again for him.
So it's an open 2nd of the match for Kevin Volker here in the 9th frame, and that may ultimately sort of decide this.
It is. The best Kevin can go is 182, and Mike's already got 170, high 170s in the 8th frame. So
just what's crazy about this sport, it's what we love about this sport, but it's just crazy. Kevin's going to go from a 279 to something in the 180s. Meanwhile, Mike is getting lucky rolls and falls like that. So it just, you know, just to think that there could be that disparity of the way one match goes to the other, I don't know how you bowlers can handle that mentally.
Well, sometimes you're making a lucky guess, and is it lucky or unlucky is the question. In this case, for Kevin, it was unlucky.
Yep. So it's going to be a win for Mike Zarcone that is going to break the tie with Chuck Jagodzinski and give Mike his 35th Beat the Champ win to move him into 1st place on that record list at the moment. Mike will be very happy to know about that. Chuck Jagodzinski will have some work to do to catch back up to him again. But it's a win for Mike Zarcone. Who knows how many more will be coming? We'll find out. More to come on Beat the Champ after a victory by Zarcone and the first loss for Volker. We've got more coming right after this. The win streak comes to an end for Kevin Volker with a 215 to 172 defeat at the hands of Mike Zarcone. So what changed from a 279 in the first match to struggling in this one? Did you change anything? Did something about the lanes change?
The lanes definitely changed. I even changed balls that next game because in practice they were suddenly flying even more than they were all day. And so I went to something that hooked less, and I just couldn't find the right spot. And you bowl Mike, you can't throw a low game, and I knew that.
Right. All right, let's talk about the positives, though. A pretty impressive 4-match winning streak where you put up some big numbers. Almost came close to a 300 game in the first match. What is it about the way you're bowling and maybe this place that helped lead you to that success?
Well, I think the 3rd time being on the show, the nerves weren't as bad this time, and just being in this house, I've grown up here, and like I said, it's my place, so if I was going to win, I think this was going to be the place. So
all right, we going to get you to venture out of this place, maybe?
We got a couple currents in Meden before. We'll get out there.
All right, there we go. Hopefully we get more of Kevin Volker. We know we're going to have more of Mike Zarcone. Zarcone versus Ryan Kress is the next match, and it's coming up next on Beat the Champ. So our final match of the week is Mike Zarcone looking to start his own winning streak against Ryan Kress. Second appearance this month by a member of the Kress family. We'll fill you in on that a little more in a moment. But Mike Zarcone, after that very solid sort of workman-like 215-172 win over Kevin Voelker, will go to work on trying to get another win. And that's a good way to get it started for Mike Zarcone.
Good shot here, because being forced in that deep, especially on lane 39, is going to be Kerri challenging for Mike. That 10-pin is going to be difficult to get out, and we've got our first left-hander here.
Yeah. We'll see what that does to
Well,
things. It's Ryan Kress making his 6th appearance on Beat the Champ. He is the brother of Tom Kress that we saw on last week's show, and there was always that chance, had Tom won, that we could have had a rematch of the only other time the two brothers have gone against each other, which was a win for Tom over Ryan, but that didn't happen, so Kress will have to carry, or Ryan will have to carry the Kress family crown here to see if he can't put some wins on the board.
Well, he could be in no better spot than being the first left-hander at the toughest.
And the 7 goes down.
This is the toughest transition time. All these games in, this is when the lanes are going to start getting really squirrely on the right-hand side, and left-hand side is untouched. So Ryan's in a position where he just has to make decent shots and make his spares if he even leaves any.
So Mike Zarcone's win over Kevin Voelker in the last match gives him now 35 wins here on Beat the Champ. That breaks a tie with Chuck Jagodzinski for #1. So Mike is now #1 in wins, #1 in show appearances at 35, and also #1 in losses, but that just means he's been on the show a lot. So 35 wins, 23 losses, and 35 appearances. He and Chuck have been sort of the superstars of this show, and it's always great. We always have at least one of them on, it feels like every month, but they have become sort of the stars of this show, which is great. And, which also means everybody's trying to knock them off and beat them, too.
Right. It's been a great rivalry between the two of them, because they're really not the same in their games. And sometimes one makes the show for the month, and sometimes the other. And they've had a few matches against each other. I think Mike said 2-2 against each other.
Yeah,
so.
It's only happened 4 times, but 2-2 in the 2 matches against each other. So, and Mike's a great champion. He's a terrific guy, and he appreciates what this show means. And speaking of which, as we look for Mike here to try to grab the spare, I hope everybody had a chance to see last week's show, our interview with Jimmy Schroeder, the all-time great Hall of Fame bowler. I just thought your respect towards him and your appreciation for who he is and what he's done really came out in the interview, and it was a lot of fun for even me to just sit back and watch and let you two bowling stars talk it up.
Well, thank you so much, but that was so interesting for me as someone who has been lucky enough to be part of a great team. I mean, we see all these great individual bowlers, and it's a different mentality to bowl as a team. And it was so interesting to talk to him about that time when team bowling was such a big deal. And not all of us, he had that ability to be a part of that, and I know what it's like to be a part of just a great team atmosphere. It was so interesting.
Yeah, and just to think that he has been on, this appearance, even as a guest on our show, means he's now been on Beat the Champ from dating back to the late 50s. So 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and now the 2010s here.
I mean, 64 years from the start. 64 years.
Just amazing.
There's a few of them left out there that remember that,
And you know what captured me the most was when he was just sort of rattling off guys that he's bowled with.
Right.
He mentions Allie Brandt. I'm like, oh, you mean the guy who the bowling center that we're going to next month is named after?
Yeah, Allie Brandt.
That's just amazing. And we'll talk a lot about Allie Brandt, who he is on next month's show. And we didn't have to talk about it. We're just going to ask Jimmy about him.
Well, we talk in reverence of these people that he bowled with and considered buddies, and that to have that knowledge and that recollection at our fingertips was really awesome.
Open frame for Ryan. He was looking at that 4-pin sort of huddle there, and he couldn't get him down. So it's an open in the 4th for Ryan Kress after starting with strikes in 1 and 2, as you can see
Right.
on the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. Zarcone, strike, spare to get things going.
Well, I was going to mention that one thing I hope that Mike doesn't do is get discouraged or aggravated with the 10 pins. I mean, he knows they're out there and he knows there are possibilities the way he's playing the lane, and he has to stay tough and keep making shots just in case Ryan, who is less experienced, makes a mistake, which we saw happen in the 4th frame
Sure.
for Ryan. So
51 years old is Mike Zarcone, employed by Shively Brothers from Tonawanda, as we mentioned, literally right around the corner from here at the Tonawanda Bowling Center. And his bowling career goes back 40 plus years, a cumulative average of 235. And as always, his wonderful wife, Kerri, is here cheering him on.
another Hall of Famer.
She can't bowl right now because of shoulder surgery, so Mike is upholding the Zarcone family bowling title at the moment. More importantly, as Terry says, she can't golf this time of year.
Oh yeah,
either,
she likes her golf for sure. Great
2 in a
shot.
row. So 4 of the first 5 are strikes for Mike Zarcone, already putting some pressure on young Ryan Kress, 22 years old, from Cheektowaga, much like his brother, part-time employee at Dairy Queen. Dream job for me. I still want it. My
What's Dairy Queen doing without the both of them?
waistline will not want it, but that would be a very fun job.
Nice shot.
Strike in the 5th for Ryan Kress, who has a 212 overall average.
The action will continue on Beat the Champ in just a minute.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
You know, this is, by the time we're at the end of the second show.
It's usually the point in time when it starts to really,
Right.
somewhere around the middle of that second show. Because of, I think, the reasons that you said is generally these lanes are used to 3 games and then they get redone and then they get re-oiled. So now we're into game 6.
Right.
So somewhere around 5-ish is where all of a sudden things are breaking down in ways that most bowlers aren't used to seeing them
Right,
break
and
down.
honestly, league bowlers all like to play around second arrow. So, you know, this 4th arrow, 3rd arrow crossings just don't happen that characteristically, and that's what makes the lanes, you know, kind of funky, because people's hold stuff that you're relying on going to as hold for your bowling ball has been broken down by the people that have been inside of you, and they've been playing that part of the lane. So sometimes your jumps are much bigger than they would normally be.
Saw a little shake of the head there from Ryan Kress trying to figure out why he couldn't get some movement over to the right side of the lanes. He'll get a spare here in the 7th.
So Mike's got himself a 15-pin lead. You know, Ryan is behind the 8 ball a little bit here because Mike's got a strike up, and you know, can kind of make that lead bigger. So important for Ryan to get striking over here.
Very critical. 8th frame, lane 39. Started it a little bit left, I think, that time.
It
which
did. It rode
means
the gutter a
didn't
little bit
carry
longer.
over to the right to
And
get the 10 pin.
But sometimes, you know, those swisher hits can be a good carry, and he didn't catch a break there and didn't catch it.
Don't forget, qualifying is going on now for next month's shows at Alley Brant Lanes in Lockport.
Yep, you're right. Today there's 12, 2, and 4, so 4 has already gone off, but tomorrow, I'm sorry, the next one will be Tuesday, July 2nd, 6:30 and 8:30 at night. And then the weekend of the 6th and 7th of July, 12, 2, and 4, both days, with the roll-off at 7 p.m. on July 7th.
Sure, you know, what better to have for your holiday weekend to go hang out up at Alley Brant Lanes.
Yep.
Get a little miniature golf in, go hang out a little bit, walk around downtown Lockport, cool off around the locks. That's a good day, right?
It is a good day.
Strike for Mike Zarcone. Speaking of good days, that's 2 in a row here in frames 7 and 8.
So he increases his lead to 26 and can go to 36 with another strike here, which would be kind of devastating this far deep into the game. Big shot.
kind of wrapped around the 4-pin there, didn't it?
Yeah, that 4-pin tends to be the leave when it comes to just a hair high. Which, for a right-hander, I have to think you would prefer that over a 10-pin any day, less margin for error.
Spare in the ninth for Mike Zarcone, so we can't quite put it away yet. Ryan will have something to say about that, but after 3 strikes on the front side, he's had spares in 6, 7, and 8, and he'll need to make a few strikes here to try to get back in, and he's facing a pretty sizable deficit right now.
He can still post up at 211. He's just going to need ball change. Oh.
Yep. Almost worked.
That was a gutsy move right here. That I like to see that in the ninth frame when you're just not getting enough out of your ball. That's a big move in the ninth frame.
Well, it is a big move, but it's like I better do it now,
yep.
or it doesn't matter. So 4 consecutive spares for Ryan Kress. Will it be enough? We'll see. It depends on what he does here in the 10th. Down 26 pins right now.
Well, unfortunately, even striking out is going to probably not be enough with a bowler like with Mike. He's not going to give you a 4 count.
Yeah, that's not going to help.
Not going to be enough.
Nope. So another valiant effort here, but as usual, Mike Zarcone just does what he needs to do to win. Not always the prettiest and flashiest, but he always makes his spares, almost never leaves anything open, throws in a bunch of strikes, and at the end of the day, he's somewhere between 2 and 220-ish or 225-ish, and there you go with another win.
No,
so
his experience really paid off here. And, he's a daunting opponent, let's face it.
And at least Ryan will end with a solid strike there for a 188 score. So all Mike needs to do is get some good pin knockdowns here, and he'll be on his way to a win.
And that's a win.
Strike will do it. So Mike Zarcone going to win his 2nd in a row, and he'll advance to next week's show. We'll come back and talk to Ryan and Mike and get you ready for next week's show. And Sue and I and Janelle Sabin return. More of Beat the Champ at the TBC is coming up next. .226 to 188, a win for Mike Zarcone over Ryan Kress. You started off hot, had strikes in the first 2. Are the lanes starting to break down a little bit? Did they bite you back a little?
Yeah, I don't know. I was practicing and I felt good, and then first few shots were good, and then they just changed, and I just couldn't string any more strikes after that and just kept leaving stuff.
Right. You and your brother Tom have been pretty steady bowlers on our show here the last couple of months. How much do the two of you push each other?
Push each other pretty hard. I always try to beat him by when we bowl, so.
Well, I'm sure you're going to get plenty of chances for that to happen as well, too. Everybody's trying to beat this guy once again, Sue.
Well, Mike, you made it look easy, but I know it wasn't as easy as it looked, because that lane 39 was definitely different.
Yeah, they're definitely hooking a little bit. Lane 39 is definitely hooking earlier. It's a challenge out there right now.
I know, and you made it look easy, but I knew what you were going through out there, because there was always that 10-pin was always looking at you going in from that angle, right?
Yeah, when I have to move in pretty deep, that's when I change the angle and leave corner pins. So we'll see what happens going forward.
Well, you kept your head about you, and you kept working at it, and you made it look good.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, so it's a winning streak. That's 2 in a row for Mike. He will try to see how much he can add to that, because we know he's coming back for next week's show. Sue and I will get you ready for that when we return. Week number 2 is another good one. We got another one coming. More from the Tonawanda Bowling Center right after this. Well, how many times have we stood here and talked about Mike Zarcone figuring out a way to beat a red-hot bowler and just sort of doing all the little things right. I think we saw that in his 2 wins here today.
We did, but what we also saw was that this is not only a physical game, it's a mental game. And Kevin overpowered with physical, and he physically really matched up to the condition. And then as it started to change, it became a mental game. And Mike made it look easy because he mentally thought through these transitions and these changes. So now we're just going through another transition, and next week we have very inexperienced bowlers.
Yep.
So we're going to have to see how that really affects the mental and physical part of this.
Yeah, and I think that's what we enjoy so much about seeing Mike, is he may be the best bowler in thinking the game of bowling. We had a great week. We had a chance to introduce ourselves to Carrie Meaden. We saw Kevin win some big matches. We see Mike win. Got some new, fresh faces.
Yeah.
Next week, we throw something at everybody every week, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. And Kerri being on the show this week was great. Only our 3rd woman bowler, so girls come out and try out for the show. And I mean, she ran into a buzzsaw with Kevin, so what are you going to do?
All right, well, we're going to find out what Mike Zarcone's going to do. Can he figure out a way to keep the winning streak alive? You'll have to tune in next week when we'll all find out. We'll see you next week right here on Beat the Champ.